All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Robert Summercraft, Dean of the Terry College of Business at the University of Georgia. As always, welcome to Terry Third Thursday and to our Executive Education Center, our base of operations here in Atlanta. We couldn't put on Terry Third Thursday without a dedicated group of volunteers and our alumni board, and I certainly appreciate the work they've done in putting this speaker series together. We also have generous sponsors that we couldn't put this on without. And first of all, I'd like to thank Bank of North Georgia as our corporate sponsor. We have a few people from Bank of North Georgia today? No? Well, on February 18th, Kessel Stelling, the CEO of Bank of North Georgia, is our speaker. And I'll bet we're going to have quite a few people from Bank of North Georgia in the audience on that day. We also have two media sponsors, Public Broadcasting Atlanta and the Atlanta Business Chronicle, and appreciate the support that you give us as well. This morning is our final Terry Third Thursday for the calendar year, but as I mentioned, we have our committee working on into 2010 for us with a really good lineup. January 21st, we're going to have Leo Wells. He is the founder and president of Wells Real Estate Funds, and a 1967 graduate. You'll find that Leo is a very entertaining speaker. If you've ever met him, you probably know that already, so you're going to have a good time in January. I already mentioned our February speaker, Kessel Stelling, CEO of Bank of North Georgia, and also regional CEO for Synovus in the Atlanta market. Coming up a little bit further into the future, we've got Joel Babbitt in March. Our basketball coach, our new basketball coach, Mark Fox, will be in April. And in May, we'll have UGA President Michael Adams. And then in June, James Shepard, chairman of what I think is a very renowned Shepard Center. We have a couple of big events coming up. I'll mention the Georgia Economic Outlook. That is going to be on December 15th at the World Congress Center. David Weiss, economist from Standard & Poor's, will be giving the national economic forecast. I will be delivering the Georgia State forecast. And, of course, that forecast is developed by our Seelig Center with Director Jeff Humphreys and his staff. I would love to have you there, so please go to the website, whether you're registering for a future Terry Third Thursday program or our Economic Outlook series. It's my pleasure now to introduce our speaker, Howard McLure. Howard will be introducing some of his family as well, who's with us today. Howard is president of Caremark Pharmacy Services, which is one of the business units of CVS Caremark Corporation. Caremark's major business is managing pharmacy benefits for a large number of employees and health plans. Howard joined Caremark in 1998 as Senior Vice President and Chief Accounting Officer. He was promoted to Chief Financial Officer and Executive Vice President 2 years later and was named Chief Operating Officer and Senior Executive Vice President in 2005. Prior to his time with Caremark, Howard served as Senior Vice President and Controller for Magellan Health Services. He's a Terry graduate from 1979. And entered public accounting initially in Macon as a certified public accountant. Howard lives in Nashville, and I appreciate the trip that he made to Atlanta. Please join me in welcoming Howard McLure.
Well, thank you very much, Dean. And listening to that list of speakers, I'm wondering what the heck did they ask me here for? But anyway, proud to be here. One or two little additions. My wife, Kathy, and I do live in Nashville. We have 3 daughters. Very proud of the 3 daughters. Sad to say that none of them went to the University of Georgia. 2 of them went to Auburn University. I succeeded in 20 semesters without ever writing a check with my name on it to Auburn University, so I'm proud of that. The 2 oldest daughters, one is a pharmacist working in Nashville, Tennessee. She's a clinical pharmacist that works with children who have bone marrow transplants. Now, those of you who have kids, think about this. When your child is going to be working on somebody with bone marrow transplants, it's a little scary for me, but she's doing very well. We're very proud of her. The other is a teacher in Montgomery. She teaches helps with special education kids that are a little falling behind and getting them up to speed. The third is a sophomore at Stanford University, so we're very proud of them. I'm also very proud to announce that I have 2 grandchildren on the way. Both of the older kids decided to have children within a few months of each other, so we will be grandparents for the first time. Now, I do have some family here with me. My father-in-law and mother-in-law, Steve and Julie Carter, are here. They will become great-grandparents with this addition. My brother-in-law, Scott, his wife, Karen, are here. And, of course, my sister-in-law, or I guess my wife's sister-in-law, Hope Carter, who actually works for the University of Georgia. So if you want to give some money, talk to Hope. That's your plug. Okay. I am pleased to be here today and to talk a little bit about what we do. Just briefly, CVS Caremark was formed through the merger of CVS Pharmacy Corporation and Caremark Pharmacy Benefit Management Company. Caremark will do roughly $50 billion in revenue this year as a PBM. The retail stores, the retail side of the business will do roughly about $50 billion as well. That's makes us the 18th largest company on the Fortune 500 list. It's headquartered in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. If you've never been to Woonsocket, I suggest you take a trip there. I had never been there before until the merger of the company. Start off here, I'm going to do maximizing your drug spend kind of at a basic level because I'm not sure what people's level of interest are. But let's start talking about national health care expenditures and looking at where we are in 2006 and where they're projected to be through 2018. As you can see, they're projected to continue to grow significantly faster than inflation. It's close to 7% through 06, through the projection period. What's important, I think, looking at this, in 2007, total health care expenditures were 16% of gross domestic product, projected to be 17.6% in 2009 and up to 20% in 2018 if this trend continues. So we've all heard about the health care debate. It's in front of Congress. Senate brought out their health care bill last night. It is a problem in this country of how we continue to fund health care. Now, if you see that 2018 is projected to be well in excess of $3 trillion. Prescription drug expenditures during the same period or through 2013 are projected to continue to grow. Now, when you look at this prescription drug component, you see it's about $300 million, roughly 10% to 15% of the expected spend as we go through the projection periods. You'll notice in 2008, the trend drops to about 3.5%. This is a projected trend. Now, getting health care expenditures down tightly is an art, not a science. So it comes through, and it takes a little while to figure it all out. But the projection periods are expected to decrease in 2008 for one main reason, and that is the recession. As people are looking to save money, they're going to be willing to transfer from branded products to generic products. And we'll talk a little bit more about the differences there. You see the trends starting to come back up, and the projected trends going up to roughly 6.6% through 2013. Now, three things drive trend. One is drug cost inflation. The drug companies raise their prices on a routine basis, sometimes twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. That drives the inflation. Second is utilization. Age 45 or over use 90% of the maintenance medications in this country. As the country continues to age, healthcare costs are going to increase. The third piece is just additional utilization. New uses for existing products. As the aging population again comes along, that type of utilization comes through. So when we look at and we talk to companies, we say, what are your goals? What are your priorities as you look at your drug spend? Because our focus is drugs. Their main goal, their main priority is to reduce their overall health care cost. So what does that have to do with drug spend? We'll talk about that in just a moment. They want to control their pharmacy benefit trend because they see pharmacy benefit costs increasing sometimes at a faster rate than other costs. They want to increase the utilization of generic products, which will reduce their cost. They want to try to control their specialty pharmacy spend. I'll talk a little about what specialty pharmacy is in just a second. but they also want their participants to be satisfied. So let's talk about your group of employers in this room. When we sell to the employer base, we don't have a single client who's in the business of providing a drug benefit. They're in some other business. They're providing a drug benefit because they want to do that for their employees. They need to do it to be able to be competitive, to recruit and retain employees. So they're not in the drug business providing drug benefits. That's where we come in to try to help provide drug benefits. But they also, if it's a benefit, it has to drive satisfaction to the participant. Now, if you look at this little graph here, this is a nice little neat thing that talks about the affordability gap. And the affordability gap is saying that workers' earnings from 1999 through 2007 have increased about 33% overall. The cost of providing health care to just active employees, not retirees, just active employees, has increased 148% during that same time period. Now, you can't put the burden of that increase on the employees. They can't afford it. Their wages are not increasing at a fast enough rate for them to absorb a lot of the cost of the increase in health care. So as companies, you have to look at how do you pay for that. So those of you who happen to get involved, maybe go to a former CFO or CFO of your company and say, hey, my health care costs are going up 15% this year when revenue is only going up 3%. Understand the situation of the CFO saying, well, that just can't happen. Costs can't increase faster than revenues. So what do companies spend on drugs every year? So per member per year, so that means not per employee but per member, you spend about $1,000 overall. If you have retirees, people over 65, you're spending about $2,500 per member per year. And if you're having active employees, you're spending roughly $850 per year. And these are averages. So what does that mean? If you have 10,000 employees, you have roughly 2.5 members per employee because they have a spouse and children. That means you're spending roughly $25 million per year on drugs for every 10,000 employees. So that's a fairly large spend. Why do you want to do this? What's the point of this? Well, drugs are there for a reason. They do help improve costs. So non-adherence to drug regimens does increase healthcare costs. If we look at how you spend total healthcare costs, you see that 80% of the cost are spent for people with chronic conditions. Now, chronic conditions can vary from somebody with high cholesterol, who's taking Lipitor, to somebody with multiple sclerosis or another disease. It's going to be with them for the rest of their life, and it's going to be very costly. 10% of that, your pharmacy spend, so roughly 15% of your healthcare spend is pharmacy spend. 10% of it is on chronic disease conditions. The other 5% is other pharmacies, antibiotics, that type of thing. And then 5% is other healthcare costs. Adherence to pharmaceuticals can help you save money. 70% of hospital readmissions result from somebody not taking their drugs the way they were supposed to, the way the physician prescribed it. You can see that if you invest $1 in pharmaceuticals for diabetics, it's projected that you will save $7 in overall healthcare costs. So that's a pretty good return on investment. We were talking about return on investment earlier at the table today. That's a pretty good return on investment for you out there. So, where do you spend your money? Well, 53% of drug spend is in top 10 classes. The top 10 classes account for more than half of drug spend. So for our sample company that's spending about $25 million, about 13 or so of that is in the top 10 classes. These are the top 4 classes by percent of spend. 10% of the drug spend is for cholesterol-lowering agents, Lipitor, the generic simvastatin, those type of products. 7% of the spend is for ulcer drugs. These are so-called proton pump inhibitors, or PPI classes. So if I start really getting into the PBM jargon, we got more jargon than you can shake a stick at. But PPI drugs, ulcer drugs, 7% of the spend on those. Antidiabetics, another 6%, and antidepressants, another 6%. So this is roughly 29% just in 4 classifications of spend. So how do you provide a drug benefit as a company? How do you get that to your employees? One is you carve it into a health plan. So what does that mean? So you go to Aetna and you say, I want to buy an insurance policy to cover my employees, and they say, do you want to include the drug benefit or not include the drug benefit? And you say, I want to include the drug benefit. That's carving it in. So Blue Cross Blue Shield of Georgia, is that still the name of the Blue Cross plan in Georgia? They change so frequently it's hard to know. Would be a carve-in if your drug benefit's there. So sometimes I like to ask this question. How many of you actually know who provides your drug benefit? You're an older group, then you're using your drugs. Okay. Usually, maybe 10% of the people actually know who is providing their drug benefit. Second way you do this is you carve it out to a PBM. So Caremark is a PBM. You can have a full-service PBM. So a full-service PBM means I'm going to provide a whole lot of services to you, rebates. I'm going to provide clinical services to you. I'm going to make sure there's appropriate utilization of drugs. You can have just a claims processor. So there are people out there that says, you know what, whatever the doctor writes a prescription for, that's what we're going to fill. And you're going to fill it in certain networks and so forth. You can pay for active employees and have your retired employees use Medicare Part D, program that was passed 4 or 5 years ago. You can have your employees have a copayment. So some of you may go and they say it's $10 for a generic drug. Others may go and say it's 20% of the cost or 30% of the cost, depending upon how the plan is set up. So let's talk about drug purchasing 101. What is some of the jargon or some of the things you're going to hear? Branded drugs are those drugs that are under patent, such as Lipitor would be a branded drug, Nexium would be a branded drug, those type of drugs. You have generics. These are drugs that meet certain classifications, certain criteria that have to be the same active ingredients as the branded drug. They have to have the identical strengths. They have to have the identical dosage forms and administration component. And they have to use the same strict manufacturing practices as branded products do. So an example of a generic drug would be for the cholesterol-lowering class, something called simvastatin. Its branded product was Zocor. It was a Merck product. It went generic in 3 years ago, 2006, I believe. Then we have specialty drugs. Now, specialty drugs, I'm going to talk about those in just a second, but that's really a $100 billion marketplace. And these are part of your drug spend, maybe part of that $25 million we're talking about for our sample company, or it could be in the major medical component, depending upon the type of drug and the use and what the plan does. Then we get to the real wonderful stuff things called average wholesale price, or AWP, or sometimes referred to as ain't what pay. This is a benchmark price that's used to determine the cost of drugs, how we're going to adjudicate your claim, what your copay is going to be based off of. There are some 60,000 NDCs, or national drug classifications. Each of those has an average wholesale price. Each of those average wholesale prices drive what you actually pay for it. And they're based off of something called weighted average cost, or WAC. And, it works through a whole lot of different things. But when you hear a quote, if you were going to buy prescription drugs from anybody, services, the first quote is going to be average wholesale price. Here's the first thing that says it's not average wholesale price. There's a discount to the average wholesale price. So where is a wholesaler going to get something at a wholesale price and sell to you at a discount? Then you have maximum allowable cost. Now, maximum allowable cost, or what we call MAC, is an outshoot of something that was done by the old Healthcare Financing Administration, which is now the Center for Medicaid Services, to price generic drugs. So MAC pricing is for generic drugs, and it walks through a whole different gamut. Generic dispensing rates means for every time there is in a classification, so if we look at the PPI class, or the cholesterol-lowering class we were talking about there, the generic dispensing rate is roughly 57% of that class in total. Now, that means every time someone takes a cholesterol-lowering agent, 57% of the time they're taking a generic. And then generic substitution rates talk about how well somebody performs. So what that means is, if a prescription is written, a doctor may write a prescription for Zocor. How many times does somebody fill it with Zocor, which is a branded product? And even though the patent has gone off of Zocor, it's still out there, still produced. Roughly 5% of the utilization of that product will be at brand. Or when it says Zocor, it's a generic equivalent, the pharmacist can automatically substitute it unless the doctor says do not substitute. So you get into a whole lot of different pharmacies, and that's different in every state. Has a lot of different rules and regulations. But so when you start thinking about the framework, if you're going to purchase drugs for your company, here are a few things you need to think about. Now, briefly talking about specialty drugs, the main takeaway here is these are extremely expensive drugs. At this point, there are no generic pathways for these drugs. It is not unusual for an individual dosage of these products to cost $15,000. It is not unusual to have a hemophiliac, these products or hemophilia products, to spend over $1 million in a year simply on hemophilia drug clotting factor. This is an expensive part. People kind of miss this. They go, well, gee, it's not, only 4 or 5% of my population is using it. Or I may only have one hemophiliac in my population. That one person can drive a significant amount of drug spend. So if you went back to your 10,000 life group and it's $25 million going to be spent on drugs and you have one hemophiliac in the population, they could make your drug spend go from 25 to 26 million. So it's very important to think about these. There is no pathway for generics here because mainly these drugs aren't produced, they're grown. They are human growth factor, which is actually they take real human growth. That's one of the big products here, short statute in children. If you have any influence in Congress, talk to them about a biosimilar pathway, which is what we're looking for. This would be a great way for the country, we're in the healthcare debate, to save a lot of money by simply creating a generic pathway for these products. So that's my commercial for that. So what does your PBM do? What happens? So your PBM focuses on financial and clinical management. It's making sure that the person is taking the right drug, that they're in the optimal channel, and that it's appropriate for them to take this product. The leading PBMs are, of course, CVS Caremark is the leading PBM. I like to think. Anyway, Medco Health Solutions, and you can tell I did this for not thinking about an audience. It's called Health Solutions. Just put Medco up there. People in the industry know it is. Express Scripts. I don't know what their real name is either. But they are one of our competitors. And then health plans also have PBMs. Aetna, WellPoint, whose PBM is being sold actually to Express Scripts. A number of different producers in this area that also will do various levels of service as you walk through this thing. So we're focusing on reducing cost and improving health outcomes because remember, the main point that our customer wants is for us to help them save on their overall health care cost, not just on their drug spend, but on their overall health care cost. So we talked a little bit about channels, so how they vary. So what are the channels? First in retail, so PBM develops a retail network. You get your prescription, you go to a retail pharmacy. You can make a decision that there are 63,000 pharmacies in the country. I don't want all 63,000 pharmacies in the country. I want less than that, or I do want all 63,000 pharmacies in the country. That's a decision point for you. Mail order. Should we duck? Mail order. The mail order pharmacies run by PBMs, so you have to be a member of a PBM to use a Caremark mail order pharmacy. Specialty pharmacies that mail, again, high-cost products. It's a way to bring that product at a better discount, but also with better clinical outcomes, with better clinical components. So let me give you some discussion with this. Specialty product, a high-cost specialty product is RSV. I forget its name. It's given to premature infants. It protects them from getting pneumonia or flu, etc., during cold seasons. So a doctor who's not paying for it, trying to protect himself from a medical malpractice case, will prescribe RSV for every patient that he has that was not taking a full term. If you put in a specialty guideline management product, which we have, one of the products that we have, we can take about 30% of that utilization out because it doesn't meet the guidelines of the American Pediatric Association. So there's a 30% reduction in spend simply for being able to do that. First year we did it, the manufacturer told us the next year they weren't going to sell us the product because we were reducing their utilization. But we have to stick with our clients. We said, okay, fine. Then they finally came back next year and said, okay, let's sell the product again. And then long-term care through nursing homes. Now, there are separate entities called long-term care pharmacies that provide pharmaceuticals if you are in a nursing home. And that gets in a whole lot of different components, but that's becoming more important as we move through this process. They did a very good job of protecting themselves in certain cases during the Med D legislation, but we'll see what happens as we move through. So you're going to buy drugs. Now you've been told, hey, you got to buy the pharmacy benefit thing for my company, and you've got to make the choice. So what do? So you go and you get a consultant, because everybody needs a consultant because this is a complex world. So you're talking about people like Mercer, Hewitt and Associates, Birchfield, a number of big, large consulting houses. I'm not going to mention all the names, so if I left you out, it's just because I left you out. So you go get the consultant. So the consultant says, let me help you determine what different cost solutions you can have, what are the plan designs that you want to put in place, and let me put out an RFP and help you select a vendor. So that's the role the consultants play. And then what issues are you going to face when you're purchasing drugs? So here's the point. The consultant comes in and says, I'm the expert, let me help you with this. You should focus on your brand discounts. Because that's, while generic dispensing rates are roughly 70% throughout the country, 70% of the spend is still in brands, 30% of the spend is in generics. So you should focus on the brand discount. And then those nasty PBMs, they get these rebates from manufacturers. So you should focus on the manufacturer rebates. And you should focus on the generic discounts. But don't worry about the utilization. You don't need to worry about appropriate utilization. So this is where people get caught. So let me give you an example of why you really want to think about appropriate utilization, not focus on manufacturer discounts. You want to get manufacturers rebates. You want to say, I want 100% of the rebates, but I don't want it in such a way that it inhibits you as a company doing what you need to do to actually reduce your costs. So let's give you an example in the PPI class, the proton pump inhibitor class. A popular branded product would cost you about $150, 30-day supply, cost you, the employer. The generic equivalent, or a generic in that case, would cost you $40. So that'd save you $110 for that one prescription. Now, if you talk to physicians, they're going to tell you they don't see a significant amount of difference in the branded products versus the generic products. As a matter of fact, you can go buy these products over the counter now, and in a lot of times get them cheaper than what is the copay. So you have to look and determine what your utilization is. But so we go back to our 25 million life group, and we look at this $150 for the branded drug, $40 for the other. We know that the generic dispensing rate in that class is about 57%. So we do a little bit of math here and there, and we come up with the fact that you're spending about $1,750,000 for proton pump inhibitors. So what's this mean? Just so somebody doesn't get acid reflux. Now, what's important about that is that acid reflux can lead to other problems down the road, so you do need to take care of that. If you said, you know what, I'm not going to cover branded products in my proton pump inhibitor class, you'd probably drive generic dispensing rates in the opposite direction. There'd still be some people who would want to take the branded product. They'd either do it outside the benefit or they'd pay a different copay, more of the cost. You'd take your $1.7 million roughly in cost and you'd turn it into about $770,000. So you'd save almost $1 million on one class. But, well, you know, can you really do that? We have clients that have done it. I'll talk about a couple of examples as we go through. So you really have to focus on the utilization, making sure there's appropriate utilization. Again, you want to make sure that the people that need drugs are taking the drugs, but you also want to make sure that the people that don't need product aren't taking it. So, for example, a doctor will write a prescription for a particular product, and the manufacturer and the FDA approval say, if you don't have results within 12 months, you should stop taking it, and the doctor will continue to write the prescription for past the 12th month, the 24th month, et cetera. What you want your PBM to do is look at that and say, hey, that's not working. If you still have a problem, try something else. But you don't need to take this product any longer, because if you haven't gotten a benefit at this stage, you're not going to get a benefit. So make sure you focus on appropriate utilization. You want people taking drugs where they need to be, but not taking drugs when they don't need to be. So what do consumers find as problems when they're purchasing drugs? Well, they focus on the delivery channel. How convenient is it for me? Where can I go? Can I go to any pharmacy? I'm going to be able to go to my buddy Sam, who's at Sam's corner drugstore, to get my drugs, because I've been going there for years and years and years, and Sam's a great guy. They want to focus on how much is the out-of-pocket cost. What am I going to have to pay in my plan design? They're going to focus on the side effects. I took this drug, and it made me feel bad. They're not going to focus on adherence because in this day and age, you remember the chart we went back to, that utilization of the price increase is coming down because people are not taking drugs because they can't afford the out-of-pocket cost. So when you're building your plan design, you want to make sure that you say, I want to encourage appropriate utilization. I want to encourage the utilization of generics. I don't want to create plan designs that provide a disincentive for somebody to go take their drugs. So you got to make sure that you're there and you're engaging those consumers in their care, because when we talk to people, we go out and talk to individual consumers and we say, what is it you want us to help you do? They want us to help them save them time, money, and give them information about improving their health care so that they can help take charge of their health care. You think about a diabetic. The typical diabetic is diagnosed by an internist. Internist comes in and says, well, we did an A1C test, you're a diabetic, here's a prescription for metformin, popular generic diabetic medication. You better take it. You need this, blah, blah. I'm going to send you to a nutritionist. If you don't stop doing this, you're going to have a heart attack and die. See you later. Got to go. Because he's in the healthcare system and he's got to churn volume. And he doesn't have time to sit down and explain us all this thing. So you're sitting there thinking, wow, what am I going to do? How do I proceed through this disease state? And that's where PBM, with a lot of engagement on members, can help you go through. We're running a pilot program right now on diabetics. Andy Gertner's son, who actually happens to work for me, is running this pilot program, and we're seeing a lot of good success out of it right now. We just got it started, and it's pretty amazing the things that are happening with that. So you will drive some dissatisfaction, but you have to trade off the dissatisfaction for the cost impacts. So now, where do you have opportunity to get sustainable savings? You restrict your channel. If you do these things, based off of what we're looking at, we think you could save 20% of your drug spend. Now, that's pretty significant when you look at this, 20% of your drug spend coming through this. And I have examples of people who've put this in place. We have a fairly large, our clientele ranges from Blue Cross Blue Shield Association for Federal Employee Plans that has over 4 million members in it, to some very local groups that have 10 employees. So we run the gamut of this. So when we're talking about this in terms of big companies, small companies, we take anybody on and try to drive savings. If you restrict a channel for chronic drugs, you can save about 4%. AT&T did that. AT&T is one of our clients. If you use generics and OTCs, you can save about 3% of your drug spend. 3M did that, and we just put that in place for them, and there was very limited disruption, and they're starting to see a lot of satisfaction, as well as appropriate utilization picking up. Clinical and utilization management, these are some of the components that I was talking about earlier. Don't take the drug after a year. If you haven't had success with it, it's not going to do you any good. So looking at those things. Using specialty drugs appropriately, this is what we were talking about earlier, specialty guideline management. Tyson, one of the clients, did that. So you look at it, you can bring about 20% savings and bring more value to your members. So now we get to the commercial. The CVS Caremark clinical difference. How do we make a difference here? And I'll almost make you sit there. Since I had to come talk, you got to sit through the commercial. And I know I'm doing such a good job of this. You're going to rush up to me and say, "Hey, how can I, get in all these savings?" I brought a salesperson with me. He's willing to sign you up right here on the spot. It's more personalization. So you need to be able to look at an individual. While you want to look at this across a broad group of people, and you're looking at a broad cost, you need to be able to get to an individual and give them personal health and drug history so that you know what you're talking about to them. Being able to help them understand their plan design, because what they want to know, remember, one of the things they want us to help them do, time, money. So when they step up to a counter or come to fill a prescription, whether it's through a mail channel or a retail channel, et cetera, you want to be able to give them the information that they need that's going to help them save time, save money. Delivering it more frequently. Because we do have a traditional PBM, and we are a traditional PBM first. We are a best-in-class traditional PBM first. But we also partnered up with these retail stores. So CVS has 7,000 retail outlets. As we're being able to bring that together, and as we continue to merge the companies through, there's going to be a lot of ways to contact people. So you're going to get more contact to it. Now, keep in mind, the way to get people to take seriously their health and their health crisis and understand things is to make sure they understand what's going to happen. So the newly diagnosed diabetic that we talked about comes in with his prescription for metformin, and he takes it. If nobody tells him that it's going to cause some fairly serious GI distress within the first 2 weeks, he's going to stop taking it because it's not going to be a pleasant experience. So pharmacist sits down and says, hey, look, they said you should take 1,000 milligrams, which is actually 2 pills of metformin. Just take 1 for the first week. Ease yourself into it. And understand this is what's going to happen and push through it. Same thing with antidepressant medications. It's going to keep you up. You're going to be sleepless, but don't stop. So that it's helping people understand what they should expect and being able to give them that on a routine basis. So we believe it's personalized, it's more frequent contact, it's more comprehensive, and that we can provide some effective clinical interventions for our members. Now, we talked about reducing choice as a way to save money. Any of you in business know if you guarantee me more volume or provide me with a channel to bring me more volume, I'm going to tend to give you a better price. Same thing holds true in the drug business. If you put it into a channel where I think I'm going to get more volume at mail, I'm going to give you a better price. By bringing together CVS pharmacies and Caremark, we created a product called Maintenance Choice. We have about 3,000 clients. 417 of our clients have signed up for this. Now, when you think about this, it's really a benefit plan change. It limits their access. In general terms, when you put in a benefit plan change, you're going to see maybe 4% of the people take it up in the first year, 5 total take it up in the second year. We've had over 10% acceptance of this within the 2 years we're here. So it's a very good product. What it does, it allows them to give mail order pricing, which is a better discount than traditional retail at CVS pharmacies. It will increase adherence. So you see this chart, this member experience on one side and the cost savings on the other. Something called mandatory mail, which is you have to go to mail order to get your maintenance medications. Drives cost savings, but doesn't drive experience. As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't make the transition from the first fill at mail over to retail to mail, and you lose some people in the translation. Maintenance Choice gives you the pricing and gives you a significant member experience, enhanced experience. So if they're happy, they're going to continue taking the product, they're going to continue taking the drugs, they're going to stay adherent, and you're going to help save overall health care costs in the long run. We have one client, Comcast. You're probably your cable company. If they are, you probably don't. Anyway, we won't go there. Don't go there. About 4% savings simply by going to Maintenance Choice. Now, they already had a mandatory mail program, which means they were already getting the cost savings they believed out of mandatory mail, but by going into Maintenance Choice, they got additional savings over and above what they were getting at mail. And then finally, you need to make sure that your PBM gives you world-class client service. In our business, we have 2 pieces. We have the customer service, the participant service, and then we have the client. How do we service the client? Are we making sure that their needs are met? So how would we as CVS Caremark work with you? We'd come to you on an annual basis with planning. We'd give you strategic guidance, counsel. We'd talk about why your drug spend did what it did. Why is it increasing? How can we help you decrease it? Giving you fact-based decisions. So we'll help evaluate the trend drivers and say, these are the drugs that are running through the medical benefit. You need to put them in an alternative delivery system because you're not capturing value out of it. You're not getting the best channel. You're not getting utilization management appropriately. And then we talk to you about how we can improve the member experience by giving them seamless interaction and giving them the message. One of the things we're talking about doing is working through the message. So rather than bombarding somebody with the same message over and over again, we're going to measure the fact that we talked to you about this twice, you said no twice, we're going to leave it alone. So that the member does get the experience that they're looking for. Now what we have found is this, in the same conversation, you can ask, hey, would you like to go to this cheaper product? And they'll say no, and then we come back to the conversation, say, would you like to go to this cheaper product? Second time, they usually say yes. So that's just behavioral analytics, changing behavior, engaging participants and changing their behavior, and making sure they are engaged in their health care. So, 3 minutes early, and I appreciate your attention. I know it's a kind of a boring subject, but I'm glad to have been able to come present it to you, and thank you very much.
Can I ask a few questions?
Yeah.
Howard has agreed to answer a few questions since we have a little bit of time. Remember, we are doing a podcast of this here, and it's a big, wide room, so please get a microphone before you ask your question.
Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. the big discounters like Walmart, Sam's, Costco, do you automatically have a PBM working in your favor, or is there any advantage? And some of us have both CVS and both, a membership in one of those big retailers.
Here's the point. Going back to this earlier slide, when you start looking at the issues you face, looking at your discounts, if you focus on unit cost when you're buying drugs, you're going to win the battle, lose the war. Because you can get a better unit cost, maybe you get a better unit cost here, but you're not going to get a lot of different things. First of all, when you buy drugs from a PBM, you're buying a basket price. So you're getting a discount across 60,000 different NDCs or National Drug Classification. You go to Walmart, you look at their $4 generics. Okay. Roughly 45% of those $4 generics actually have an average wholesale price, and remember, ain't what's paid, lower than $4. So when they look at it as a basket, they're saying, you're getting a good savings over here on this part of it, but you're paying more for this part of it. Okay. So as my old granddaddy used to say, what the big print giveth, the little print taketh away in contracts. And that's what you find in this case. You can't focus solely on unit cost. You have to focus on the entire picture.
Hi, can you explain the difference between the maintenance choice and the mandatory mail order?
Certainly. Mandatory mail order means that you have to use for maintenance drugs. So those would be the chronic condition drugs that you're going to take probably for the rest of your life. Lipitor would be a chronic drug. Nexium might be a chronic drug. Certainly all the anti-diabetic drugs. You have to go in a mandatory mail program. You have to use the PBM's mail order after some number of fills. You probably are allowed to, at the most restrictive program, you're going to get the first fill at retail. Then after that, you're going to have to go get a fill at mail. So you're going to have to get your doctor to write you a 90-day prescription. You have to mail it in, come back. Under the maintenance choice program, you have a choice. If your company signs up for that, you have to get a maintenance medication either through mail or at a CVS pharmacy. So that means that if you're going to a CVS pharmacy, you have to get a 90-day prescription. But what can happen is you go sign up, the pharmacist or the tech knows that you're on maintenance choice. They say, gee, you've got this 30-day prescription. Your plan design is going to say you need a 90-day prescription. Would you like us to call the physician, get the 90-day prescription laid out so that next time you come to pick this up, you've got it done. So that's the difference. That's the service difference that we're offering here with maintenance choice. Generally, in a mandatory mail program, we'll offer that service as well. But we've got to know it. You've got to contact us. So we take a little bit of the stress out of it, a little bit of the ease out of it with maintenance choice, and you get a choice. You can go to a retail pharmacist. Some people are more comfortable going to a retail pharmacist. Some people like the convenience of mail. They don't want to go to the retail store. We offer both alternatives.
Right here, over here, back in the corner.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You on?
Excuse me.
Just a quick question. Thank you very much, by the way. It seems like a very complex issue. I'm just curious, how do you handle sales and marketing and business development in your organization?
How do we handle sales and marketing and business development? Well, I have a salesperson right here with me, so if you'd like to buy a product, he's here. Sales and marketing is handled with a lot of different ways. First of all, we have young salespeople, folks that are going out and making contacts, talking to prospective buyers, whether you're a Caremark participant or client or not. We also respond to, this business is big on requests for proposals. So remember we talked about the consultants earlier. Somebody decides they want to buy PBM services or think about switching PBM services. They'll go to a consultant. The consultant will put out a request for a proposal. Comes into a proposal department. We take a look at it, provide them back with cost estimates. A request for a proposal, Dan, is over 200 pages roughly, generally, ask a whole lot of questions, maybe 2 pages about cost, the rest of it about a lot of other things. So that's the handling the marketing component piece of this business. It's a B2B business. It's not a B2C business. So it is about talking to folks. It's about marketing to consultants. Consultants are gatekeepers in a number of places. So we have people, one person whose sole job it is to work on the consultant relationships, talk to them, find out about what's going on, who's coming up to bid. And really it's about paying attention to where clients are and giving them the marketing message.
Thanks for coming out to speak to us. It was a great presentation. I've got two questions, if I can bother you with this. First is, for your business, CVS Caremark was a big deal when it got done. And how is the company, this is a new model of integrating the pharmacy benefit management and the retail distribution, I think. Can you speak to that a little bit about the challenges and the benefits? Second question, is to give you a chance to get on a soapbox on the healthcare debate. In the Journal yesterday, the president of Harvard Medical School went on record as saying, in a paraphrase, that the current legislation would expand coverage, obviously, but doesn't do a lot for cost reduction and quality of care.
Okay.
Thoughts?
So the first question, I'm going to be very brief on it because I'm not in investor relations. That's not my job. This is a model that works. This is a model that will work. When you do talk about, go back to what consumers want. The way you're going to save money here is by impacting the consumer, changing behavior. The more times you can touch them, the more times you can talk to them, the more times that you can deliver a message to them, is the more likely you're going to be able to change their behavior. So we believe that this model, bringing retailer together with the PBM, allows, if you can get information to the PBM, from the PBM to the retailer, they're going to be able to have better engagement, and they're going to be able to change the behavior and provide information at the point of service to those folks to help them make intelligent decisions. Biggest issue, going back to the question earlier of the Walmart component, the Walmart came out with a $4 generic, then they came out with a $10 for 90-day. A lot of our participants have less than a $10 copay, but they still went to Walmart to get their drug. We had to call them up and say, hey, you realize it's actually cheaper for you to come here? And they went, really? So people don't understand their benefit. So it's helping get that information in their hands. Healthcare. This is Howard McLure's personal opinion. It's not the opinion of CVS Caremark Corporation. They did change the name of the healthcare reform to healthcare financial reform, because all they're really talking about today is how they finance it. And you heard Jay Leno last night say, gee, the post office lost $3.8 billion. I got a great idea. Let's turn healthcare over to the government. Look at the outrage that occurred when the report came out. I think it was yesterday. It actually came out 2 weeks ago, but got some publicity yesterday, of the federal government's commission study on mammograms. And this flies in the face of everything that everybody's ever heard about what women should do to take care of their health. So you go to Canada, and one of the great things that I remember of watching the healthcare debate back in the Clinton years was the Minister of Health from Canada was there on a panel. It was on public television. And they asked, well, how does the Canadian system work so well? Thinking they were going to get some great philosophical answer. And the lady's answer was this: Canadians will accept mediocrity. Think about that. They're going to accept mediocrity. Okay, so do you want your health care to be mediocre? How do you want it to be? Well, do you want to be able to incentivize people to go out and do research and create innovations, or do you want to turn all that over to the government? Now, the health care cost is increasing significantly. But a lot of these are voluntary components, voluntary surgeries, things that unnecessary utilization for things like physicians being concerned about their health care. I had a friend whose daughter went to the doctor for the first time by herself, and she said, doctor said, anything going on? I'm getting a little dizzy when I get up in the morning. $15,000 later, they figured out, well, gee, she must just have some allergies when she's waking up in the morning. She's getting dizzy. $15,000 because we did one test. One test occurred. And, well, that didn't show anything. But, if we go to the more expensive test, maybe that'll happen. And if we go to the more expensive test, maybe that'll happen. I went for my annual heart exam, cardio, whatever they do. They put you on the treadmill, stress test. Thank you. So I'm sitting in the waiting room, and the lady comes out, and she goes, you really should be having the nuclear medicine test. I said, wow, the nuclear medicine? What do I need a nuclear medicine test for? Well, usually this is what they order. I'm going to call the doctor and see if he wants to do this. She comes back about 10 minutes later and said, well, the doctor said, you didn't need that. So I go, do my stress test, come back. I'm up in beautiful Woonsocket, Rhode Island, which is a good vacation spot if you've never been. And they say, I get a phone call from my doctor. Your test is inconclusive. We think you might have heart disease. What do I need to do? What do you think I needed to do? Come back and have the nuclear test. Because that's what they wanted me to do to begin with. So we spent another $4,000 figuring out that I'm fine. I'm fat, I'm overweight, but I'm fine. My heart's okay. Pumping blood. Why do you have that? You invited me on the soapbox, and I'm going to go there. I apologize to any attorneys in the room. Medical malpractice is one of those reasons. Because a doctor, if there's a 5% possibility that a more expensive test might uncover a problem, the doctor's going to go ahead and do it because it covers him from a medical malpractice perspective. Now, there are a number of people who disagree with that. I was having dinner one night with a young man who was one of the architects in the Clinton healthcare component. He said it has nothing to do with that. The guy's a very well-known expert as what drives cost. It has nothing to do with that. But you ask doctors and they tell you, yes, it's one of the reasons why I do this. So how do we save healthcare costs in this country? By looking at evidence-based medicine, by going back and saying what works and what doesn't work. Runaway costs today in oncology treatments, oncology drugs, because nobody wants to say to a cancer patient, you can't have this drug. It may save your life, but you can't have it. There are rules-based, there's evidence-based components that says for this type of cancer, this drug will work and be effective. But off-label use, and that is the FDA, when they approve a drug, they say, here are the uses that we're approving it for. But off-label use, a physician can use it off-label anytime he wants to. It happens a lot in oncology. What happens in oncology? Well, the oncologist figured out about, 10 years ago that these drugs were infused. And when they are infused, you don't get the same dosage every time. You need to go in the doctor. They have to check your blood markers. They have to decide your weight. They have to mix this drug for you on a custom basis. So it's not like you're going in and getting a pill, although there are oncology products that are on pills these days. They figured out that if they took it in-house, they could do all that infusion work there. But the government said, well, you know what, we're not going to pay you for that infusion. We'll pay you for the drugs, but not the infusion. So the drug manufacturers go, okay. So if a competitor product comes out on the marketplace and I want to maintain my market share, what do I do? Well, in your business, what do? Competitor comes out with a product, what do? You cut your price, try to retain your volume. Not in this case. In this case, the manufacturer increases his price. Because by increasing his price, the physician makes more money by staying with the same product. So he's not incentivized to use a different product. And the introduction of new products drives prices up. Of the pipeline of drugs that are coming up for the FDA for approval, about 500 of them are these specialty products that I talked about earlier. The vast majority of those are oncology. So when you look at the proliferation of technology and the overutilization of healthcare services, that's what drives cost. And we get to the aging of the population, it's just going to continue to compound, where we see this projection of it being 20% of gross domestic product. That's, if you've got children or grandchildren making decisions about a career decision, the healthcare world is probably not a bad place to be at this stage if this continues. You invited me on the soapbox, and I'll get off now.
Hi, Howard, thank you so much.
Thank you,
really appreciate your remarks to us.
Yeah.
And on behalf of our alumni board, I'd like to present you with this glass sculpture from our local artist, Paul Benzunas.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Remember, as you're leaving the parking deck, please just tell them that you were Terry Third. Take it out of the garage. Hope you enjoyed the presentations this year, and look forward to seeing you back in January.